I literally never thought I was going to be a life coach. If you had asked me at ages 11, 17, 22, what I wanted to be when I grew up, life coach would be so far down the list that it would take us a long time to get there. And yet, it is the best job I have ever had. I love being a life coach. I'm good at it. And I get to make my own schedule and I get to help people. And I know a lot of people ask me how I got here, how I ended up being a life coach and why. And it's definitely a bit of a winding road. So if you're down for that, buckle up, grab a drink, and let's chat. If you're new around here, hi, hello, my name is Megan. I am an author, content creator, and life coach for autistic and ADHD adults like myself. And as of this month, I have officially been doing this for 5 years. So let's talk about how I got started. So back when I was a kid, the main things that I wanted to be were a teacher, an author, and a mom. The teacher bit I was never totally sold on, but it just seemed the closest to what it was I wanted, which was to learn stuff and then tell people about it. Now, author, that was always a diehard dream. I always really, really wanted that, and I'm so proud of myself that I can say I'm an author now. If you want to check out my book, Welcome to auDHD, the link will be in the description. And as for being a mom, that was something that was just expected of the women in my family and in the Midwest and all of that stuff. So it was a dream that was kind of put upon me, but I think it was also a dream that came from my heart. I am the mom of 3 amazing kiddos now, and it's incredible. It's hard at times for sure, but my kids are amazing and I love them so freaking much. So that's kind of what I wanted to be when I was a kid. But even back then, I had a really strong interest in psychology. This mostly manifested in taking a lot of personality quizzes, like to the point that this one girl in my class had an American Girl quiz book. And I asked to borrow that thing so many times that eventually she said, "Fine, Megan, just have it." And looking back, I don't think she was actually giving it to me. I think she was being sarcastic, but I am autistic and always have been, even though we didn't know back then. And I kept it. So once I got to high school, I did think about doing something with psychology. Namely, I really wanted to be a research psychologist. I just really wanted to research the brain and how it worked and how people interacted with each other and with themselves. And I just wanted to hole myself away in a laboratory and learn all of this stuff. But I was discouraged from doing so because, as I said, having kids is very expected where I grew up. And I was told that if I had to get my PhD, it would put off when I could start having kids, and therefore I would have less of them. And that's not what I wanted. To be fair, I really did want kids, and so that was a valid point, but I do wonder if I had definitely been able to do that and also have kids. I also think I might have been persuaded away from psychology because in the 2000s and the 2010s, there was still a lot of disdain for psychology, at least in the Midwest where I grew up. I don't think my parents ever said anything negative about therapy or psychology or anything like that necessarily. I think it was societal, but I have a vivid memory of driving through a nearby town that was definitely a little more well-to-do than ours. And I was staring out the window and we passed a sign for a therapist's office. And I have such a vivid memory of me rolling my eyes and thinking something along the lines of like,
of course they think they need therapy here in this uppity little town.
And like I said, I don't think my parents gave me that message. I think that was just the message we as a society kind of had about therapy, that it was something that rich people did for their whiny little problems. And that's not what it is, by the way. Please don't think that's currently how I feel about therapy. I love therapy, but that was kind of the dominant social narrative at the time. So what did I end up doing? I ended up going to college for something called Communication Sciences and Disorders, which was kind of a joint undergrad degree that prepared people to either go to grad school for audiology or go to grad school for speech language pathology. Personally, I was ready to become a speech therapist. I had a whole plan. I was gonna go to grad school, get my degree, and then get a job in an elementary school. I would have babies and I'd have the summer off with my kids. I had a plan. And then my senior year of undergrad, I took a poetry class just for fun. I had time in my schedule. I had always liked poetry. I took it and it changed my entire life. My professors were very kind and said I was very good at this, and they really recommended I try to pursue writing in some capacity professionally. The little kid in me who had always dreamed of being an author was thrilled about this. And when it came time to go to grad school, I had a decision to make. I had applied to both poetry grad schools and speech therapy grad schools. I had gotten into both, but for speech therapy, I was gonna have to take out my first loan. And for poetry, they were gonna pay me to teach. To me, the answer felt like a no-brainer. I loved poetry so much more than speech pathology. Not that I didn't like speech pathology, I liked it. I loved poetry. And if it didn't pan out, if I couldn't get a job afterwards, then I could always just go back to grad school, take out that loan, and do speech therapy. All I would be risking is 2 years of my life, and I was willing to risk that. And grad school for poetry was amazing. I mean, it was awful. Academia is really fucked up. If you don't know, it's very messed up, especially the higher you go, the weirder it gets. And also it was an incredible, beautiful, eye-opening experience, and I learned so much. And while all of this like drama about what I was gonna do with my life was going on, I was also really, really depressed throughout college. I sought help, I went to therapy, I got a psychiatrist, I did all the things you're supposed to do, and I really didn't get much better. And that's looking back because we didn't know I was autistic and ADHD and had a dissociative disorder. So we were treating me for depression and anxiety and bipolar disorder when none of those things really accurately reflected what was going on with me. So of course it wasn't working. But anyway, then I graduated with my master's in poetry and had to start finding a job. As you might anticipate, a master's in poetry doesn't really prepare you for a specific job. But I found that I could spin my experience a little bit. I could just focus on the fact that I had a background in writing. I didn't have to mention that it was specifically poetry. I could just say I had a background in writing and I would love to be their content marketing person. I got a couple interviews and most of the interviews actually went pretty well, which I know is a little unusual for autistic people, but I do okay in interviews. Where I really struggled was the skills tests. There was one experience in particular where they put me in a windowless room. And then they gave me like 7 digital folders on a computer, and each folder had like 5 to 10 pieces of information, articles, whatever inside. And they told me to go through, read the information, and consolidate it into a 1-page report. This task is a nightmare for any ADHDer, especially an auDHDer, where we get very fixated on details and we have a hard time summarizing or collecting details and narrowing it down because we want you to know everything. I wasn't given a time limit, and they put me in there, closed the door, and left the room. They came back to get me because everyone was going home for the day, and they said it was time for me to leave. To this day, I have no clue how long I was in that room. I think it was like 2.5 hours. My report was 8 pages long. It did not go well. And this is how most of my corporate 9-to-5 job interviews went. I looked great on paper. I performed well in the interview. But when it came time to do a task, I just couldn't stay focused. So I started applying to freelancing gigs. I figured I could write here and there on a freelance basis just until I got a 9-to-5 job. But the 9-to-5 job kept not coming, whereas the freelancing gigs did. I got lots of really wonderful freelancing jobs that paid me well and the work was fine. And so that's what I did for about 3 years. What are you doing? Oh, me? I'm working on a resource roundup for one of my one-on-one clients. What is a resource roundup? It's a really cool collection of Instagram accounts, academic articles, online tests they can take, podcast episode, YouTube channels, and so many more resources that pertain specifically to what we've talked about in our sessions. That actually sounds really helpful. What do you put in a resource roundup? Well, for this particular client, we are primarily focusing on shame and stories we tell ourselves about who we are and how we can tell stories that are more helpful, more honest, and more compassionate to ourselves. That's kind of awesome. Yeah, but I mean, for some of my clients, we focus a lot more on productivity. For other clients, we focus on emotional dysregulation. And for other clients, we focus on interpersonal relationships. It's super, super customizable when you work with me one-on-one. So what should people do if they're watching right now and they want their own resource roundup? They want to work with you. Oh, they can just go to the description and book a discovery call with me. I love meeting with people before I decide to work with them just to make sure we're a good fit. Oh yeah, get back to work and we'll get back to the video. Oh yeah, thanks, okay. But But the whole time I had been freelancing, ever since I graduated with my master's, I had been writing a blog. Now, for those of you who are maybe a little younger than me, I know blogs are not very popular anymore, but they used to be a really great way for people to just write about their lives and connect with other people. It was a way to be a writer without needing to get a publishing deal. And I loved it. I loved my blog so much. I worked on it for about 2 years while I was freelancing and raising my first son. And then I decided I wanted to monetize it. It was taking up a lot of my time, and I just decided if I was gonna do this, I needed to get paid for it. At first, I put ads on my site, but I don't really like ads on a blog because they're so distracting. And so instead, I decided I would create like digital products, ebooks, courses, things like that. My blog originally was about everything. It was called Megan Writes Everything. And it was about politics and motherhood and mental health and everything. But when I decided to start selling things, I decided to niche down to mental health specifically. And the digital courses and products and stuff, I actually sold those pretty well, but because they were like ebooks and courses, they weren't that expensive. And so even when I sold a couple, it wasn't a ton of money coming in. And you know, like I said, I had a son to provide for and my husband and everything. And my husband had a steady job, has had a steady job. God bless him, he's a Capricorn. Mwah, chef's kiss. He allows my dreams to be possible through his stability. But regardless, I still, if I was gonna make this a business and needed to be making more money, I had to find an offer that I could charge more money for. So I racked my brain trying to think of something I could offer that would be worth hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars. And I came up with my experience. I had been struggling with my mental health since I was 19 years old. And frankly, I was probably struggling before that. It just wasn't acceptable in my household to even acknowledge that. And I had learned a lot about mental health, about self-care, about self-love in those years that I had been struggling. So I decided I could be a coach. I knew I couldn't be a therapist, not without going back to school, and with a 1-year-old at home, that just wasn't gonna work. And I didn't even know that I wanted to do the therapy thing. I just wanted to meet with people, share my lived experience, listen to theirs, and give them the tools they needed to move forward. So I decided to make a TikTok announcing that I was a coach. Most of my TikToks got anywhere from 200 to 500 views. I figured a handful of people would see it, nobody would take me up on it. It was just practice. It was just a way for me to practice claiming this new identity as a coach. Lo and behold, that video, the very first video where I ever said I was a coach, went viral. As in over 3 million views viral. I had 50 discovery calls overnight. I had to go to my in-laws so they could watch my son so that I could take calls from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. It was bananas. And I was so honored and thrilled, and I got my first clients from that viral video. About a week later, I actually got certified. Being certified is not required for being a life coach. You can use just your lived experience for sure, and I think there's a lot of value in that, but I wanted to make sure I was doing this right. So I got my certification from Transformation Academy. It's a very basic certification. I already knew most of the information, but it made me feel better to know that I had taken a course and learned what I knew I needed to know to do this job. And now I've been doing this for 5 years. I love this job. I love all the people I get to meet. I love getting to share my knowledge that I've gained over the years. I love that I get to accommodate myself by, structuring my days in a way that works for me. I mean, it's 11 a.m. and I'm filming a YouTube video. Like, this is the dream for me. And maybe best of all, I get to watch people grow and change right before my eyes. I get to see all of their hard work pay off as they're able to become more productive or able to regulate their emotions in a healthier way or able to just look in the mirror and say, yeah, I kind of like that person. I love my job and I would love to work with you if you have any interest in working with a life coach who specializes in autism and ADHD. I am currently accepting one-on-one clients, and if you have any interest, I encourage you to go to the description and book a discovery call. That way we can meet, we can see if we vibe and determine if I am the best coach for you. I can't wait to meet you, and I'll see you all next time.